is coming in. I will keep letting people into the room, but thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna get us started, and then we've got a fun hour ahead of us. But thank you for being here. This is a panel discussion around a global challenge that many of us are experiencing: coaching at scale for managers. I'm Kelsey Lee. For those of you that I haven't met, I see a lot of friendly faces and a few new ones. So it's great to be here. Hi, Crystal. Katya's here. Triana's here. Sean is here. It's awesome to have you. Some of you are on mute, or some of you are on video, some of you are not. It's totally fine. Whatever works for you for this hour. And this is being recorded, so we'll share it out after the fact. And I know some people RSVP just to get the follow-up materials, so that's great as well. I just want to place us in the room together. So the reason why I scheduled this panel and curated this group of amazing panelists for us today is because this is a conversation I'm having often with my clients. I work in manager training, and many clients are saying, we know coaching is really impactful. Coaching has gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, when it comes to the leadership development space. There's still a lot of unknowns about coaching, but more and more executives are getting access to coaching, and it still hasn't quite made its way to the manager training, the manager level. And so that's where I'm curious, because when I do manager training, whether it's for 10 managers or 1,000 managers, we're asking, how can we bring this highly impactful, transformational experience that, when it's paired with skills training and systems design, really rounds out the manager experience and makes managers much more successful, and makes companies more successful. So we're seeing the impact, but how do we continue to scale it with the essence at its core without losing the true meaning behind coaching? So I brought 3 people here for us today so that we can ask them these questions. They have a varied experience with coaching in different industries and with different size companies. And I think that is the most important part here. That some of you are a coach, some of you run manager training programs at your company, some of you are a recipient of manager trainings and you're looking to advocate for them. So everyone is coming from slightly different angles today, and that's a great thing. No question is too silly or too small. I just want to lay that out there. We're all coming from different places, but aligned on this topic. So without further ado, I have 2 goals or visions for us today. One, you're carving out an hour of your time. I hope that you can meet at least one new person here today. So we're going to kick off our time together actually in breakout rooms, which is a little anti-panel normal structure, but I'm all here to break the norm, because I think it's really important for you to connect with someone new. And then 2 is, I hope you take away one new nugget that you can integrate into your practice, or also think about how you can integrate it into the system that you exist within at your company. So whether you're the one making decisions around manager training, or a manager yourself, or just curious about this topic and just want extra tools in your tool belt. So that's what I have on our radar today. We're going to start with the icebreaker, and then when you all come back, I'm going to introduce our panelists. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms, and 2 things. We're going to just introduce yourself. You can share your name, where you work, where you're located. And then 2 is, why is this topic of coaching at scale for managers important to you right now? How does it apply to you in this moment of time? Why are you here today, essentially? Any questions? Introductions? Why is this topic important to you? Let's see. Let's we're going to have 3 participants in a room. I'm going to give you about 6 minutes. So it's going to be quick, 1 to 2 minutes per person. When you get into your breakout room, just go ahead and dive on in, and I'll pull you back and we'll jump into the panel from there. All right, see you soon. Welcome back, welcome back. Before I turn it over to the panelists, I'd love to hear from 2 of you that are not panelists. What did you share in the breakout room? Why is this topic important to you right now? Why is this relevant? If you want to just jump off mute, feel free.
Good morning, Kelsey. I'm
Go
happy
ahead,
to be
Lauren.
here. Hi, good morning.
Thanks.
I'm Lauren Chadwick. I'm based in the Bay Area. I manage a team of workplace experience specialists. And why this topic is really important is I manage a dispersed team across multiple campuses at all different levels. So I'm always looking at ways to be able to coach and motivate the team both in person as small team groups and then virtually as well to remain connected. And then as well, I also curate our learning and development program for our entire org. And so specifically looking at bringing to scale again, that coaching element and really fostering that level of employee that's looking to move into that management level in the future, and how to get them excited about being managers.
Thank you for that. Creating consistency across all different types of people, all different parts and roles within the organization, but also keeping that motivation from the beginning of their manager experience, even as like the pre-managers coming into management. It's awesome. Thank you. One other share before we dive in.
I am here because I am so used to, hi, I'm Dina. I'm with Crossroads Live North America. My name is not Crossroads Live North America. I am so used to, I work in theater and I'm so used to being a team of one that I don't have the skills to coach. And so I need them. Please give them to me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And it's still a new skill set in the scope of manager leadership training. So you're not late, you're right on time. And thank you for being here. All right, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists. I'm going to ask them the same question. What is their role and why is this topic important to you? Drew, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Kels. My name is Drew Allison. Really excited to be here. I'm from Chicago. I have my MBA in transformational leadership, which had a dedicated focus on emergence coaching specifically. And I own and operate a sales consulting firm called Cape and Cowl Consulting, where I focus on bringing emotional intelligence and psychology into sales and business. And you know, as much as I love it, and it's my passion, and it's a lot of people's passions here, sometimes it's kind of getting people to eat their vegetables a little bit. So like and one reason I'm here is because my clientele is incredibly global. So when Kelsey presented this idea of scaling globally, not only in volume, but also in a variety of cultures. And you know, I currently operate throughout North America and Europe with expansion down into South America coming very soon. And it's, you know, how do we maintain a high level of coaching while being cognizant and caring of cultural differences and relativity and all these things that really play a big part in something as nuanced and, you know, emotionally, you know, charged as coaching can be. So very, very excited to be here.
Thanks, Drew. Jane, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all, to see some friendly faces. So I'm Jane. I'm based here in Los Angeles. I'm currently in a head of people role that I'm brand new to, about a month in. Before that, I was at Etsy, and before that, I was a consultant with a company called Nobel. And before that, I was in-house HR. So I've held a lot of different roles in relation to coaching. I've done it. I've been the one to bring in coaches. I've been the one to think about like what the right program is. What the reason it's important to me is I've also experienced a lot of career transitions in my experience, as you probably heard, and I've personally gained so much from coaching. And I think the value is so clear when you're experiencing it as an individual. And then when you start to talk about it at scale and talk about it for a varied length of uses, I think it starts to get harder and harder to communicate what the impact of coaching is or what the ROI is. And that's sort of where the conversation usually sits, I think, at a corporate level, like how do we actually prove impact with this program? So that's why I'm interested in talking through it today.
Thanks. And Andrew?
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Terlizzi. I'm Senior General Manager with Crossroads Live North America. We are a Broadway production company. We produce Broadway national tours and we tour them globally. I am passionate about this because we are a company that's in transition and we've just merged into a global brand and have many new leadership that have taken up and leveled up quite a few managers in our company. And we've been a company that spent the last year investing in our culture and sort of the office experience for everyone. And so we've been heavily focused on how we as a business can do better. And I've had the privilege of being someone who was very anti-coaching and very much confident in my management skills to now be 100% invested in coaching and receiving coaching and now hoping to share and spread coaching with all of my team.
It's great. It's good to see the resistance, right? There is that normalization there. So we'll get into that. So just to lay the land for the rest of our time together, I have a couple questions prepared, and then in about 20 minutes, I'd like to turn it over to you for additional Q&A. So if you have questions, as questions bubble, please hold them, remember them, write them down so that we can bring them to the Q&A portion of our time together. A big thing for me is, especially when we get into advocating for budget around coaching, we need to make sure coaching is the right solution. It's not always the right solution. And so my question to the panelists is, how do you know when coaching is the right solution or when it's time to advocate to bring coaching to the management layer? Go ahead,
You
Drew.
want us directly, or you want us to just hop in?
You can hop in and we'll go from there.
Well, I'll hop in. So I think this is a great place to start, because for me, coaching exists within kind of 5 skill sets. It's not totally revolutionary, but you've got training, supervision, management, leading from the front, and coaching. Like those are like kind of the 5 overall umbrella skill sets for me for managers. And so understanding where coaching fits into that, I think it's understanding what the other options are, and how do we use those as kind of a multi, kind of a 5 vertical approach to supporting managers and supporting team members. So I know for me, the way that I determine if coaching is the right option is to figure out what our objective is in that moment. What are we trying to accomplish? And there are times when coaching is appropriate. There's times when letting somebody figure out themselves it's appropriate, and there's times to step in and do it yourself. And I think sometimes, like there are times where that can be incredibly valuable. Not always, and it's often frowned upon to kind of step in and overstep. But I think it can be really beneficial for everybody in the right moment. And so looking at going from an objective first and then working backwards to determine the right which of those 5 verticals is most appropriate is kind of is where I start.
Thank you.
I'll build on that. I think about it like individual readiness too. So just like when I'm talking to a manager about delivering feedback, usually what you're listening for is some shared understanding that there is a gap, a place to go towards, some place of progress that you want to get to. And I think when you think about scaling programs like coaching, you don't want to get to a place where you're kind of forcing coaching on people who are not asking for it or who are not clear on what they're going to gain from it. And I think that's sort of like the readiness aspect is, do they understand what the end of the road looks like? And do they feel like they can get it from this partnership? Without that, I think you're like, working uphill in a way that you probably don't need to. That's the one thing I think about. The other thing is, and I think you can gain that through like intake conversations with their manager, conversation with the person, maybe feedback they've gotten and responded to. and then understanding that there is actually like the opportunity for them to grow into the whatever the next step is. The other thing I think about, this is my perspective, and I think it's varied across like different programs and coaches. So I think it varies in general, but I'll say my bias is that coaching is usually not best for performance improvement plans. Like when someone at the point where someone's on a PIP or really struggling, I don't know that coaching is the thing that's going to turn it around at that point. Ideally, you're hopefully starting a little bit earlier and maybe thinking about more targeted, like on the ground, really practical, here's your expectation, here's what's going to happen next solutions, versus sometimes I see this or have seen this, or I've like talked to other colleagues and other companies who've seen this, where you're like kind of just like throwing coaching into the mix when someone's really struggling. And I don't know that I've seen that come out as a success story often. So.
And I think similar to that is also making sure that once we've identified many who want to grow in their careers, and we see ourselves as a training ground for the future members of our industry. And so as we see those growth, excitement, desire to professionally develop, then we've started to coach them internally. And then when it gets to a place where we also identify that we need a professional coach or someone to be outside the organization, we align them. And our company has provided 3 different options of 3 very different coaches for to align, to make sure that the employee connects with that coach, because there's no point in coaching if you're not aligning with the coach that's guiding you, helping you through your professional development. I actually coached with 3 different individuals before I landed on my sort of regular, consistent coaching. So.
Thank you. When advocating for coaching, this is getting back to the resistance, what's a primary resistance you receive from either the executive or from the managers that you're introducing coaching to? To Jane's point, maybe it is truly about readiness. And so if they're not asking, or if they don't show an interest in that sort of partnership, but I'm just curious to open up the conversation. How do you navigate resistance? What resistance are you still seeing around coaching, whether you're talking to executives or the managers themselves?
I see a lot of resistance in, I don't need that. I'm good. I'm confident. I'm strong. I've got it. And it's from managers who are strong and confident and good at their jobs, which I can say was myself. You know, I was I have very strong opinions. I'm an assertive manager. I lead a strong team. But I also have massive professional development and goals that I'm trying to reach. And so it was presented to me as, this is an opportunity to perfect, continue to shape and grow. And then I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then I stepped into it and then ended up finding it extremely useful. So the resistance I see a lot is definitely that it's people who are confident and don't say they need coaching, but don't really understand what it is.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I see a lot of ROI resistance. You know, what am I going to get for my investment on this? And you know, I often couple coaching with more direct hard skills training to bolster the ROI and package it as part of something that's larger. That coaching is integral and is part of it, and it's part of my unique value prop as a consultant. But I help tie it to something that's more traditionally tracked or measured. And you know, whether that is revenue or retention rate, those are probably the top 2. I often advocate coaching as a way to increase retention rate and decrease costs for hiring and onboarding. And have modeled that out for folks in prospecting to help them see what the direct ROI to coaching can be. And I've found that to be very successful.
I was going to build, I totally agree with the ROI side of things. I think, like I touched on in my introduction, I was also going to build on that first comment of like, I'm good, I got this, I don't need coaching. I think, you know, like historically, years ago, let's say 10 years back, it was really normal for coaching to be more of a punitive thing, like versus something we did to invest in our high performers. And I think we have to be really confident about changing the story in order for people to feel like it's okay to have a coach and have that be a mark of they're investing in me versus I'm on some sort of list that's marked me. So I think that's the transition in storytelling. Something that I think I've found works is talking about it through the story of like change. Coaching is really valuable when you're going through a career change. Someone mentioned like moving from an IC to a manager, moving to a more senior role of manager, moving into a new role, moving into owning a new team, running a new product. I don't like whatever it is. I think telling the story of like, we think it makes sense for you to have a coach at this moment because you're going through this key change experience. And what comes with those change experiences is a lot of like questioning whether you can figure out what's next because you don't know. It really helps to have someone that's external that can kind of like play things out with you that isn't your boss, because I think it starts to feel a little hard to be that vulnerable in those moments of change. You want to show that you got it. You want to show that you have it covered. So I found that helps sometimes to kind of like overcome the hurdle of I got this. I don't need it. I don't want to be put on the list of people who have coaches versus this is a badge of honor.
Mm.
I think that's even more important for the middle manager level of coaching. I think executive coaches are common and often seen, and then obviously coaching for employees who need development and growth and challenge and are challenged at work. But it's that mid-level manager who is trying to grow in their career, step up, level up, take a bigger team, projects, etc., that can maximize the usage of coaching, I think.
I appreciate that. It's having someone acknowledge either you're looking to change, you're looking for professional development, or you're in the middle of a really big change. And so this is another tool to add to your tool belt. And then to Drew's point, when we're talking to people that are looking to bring coaching in, how can we pair it with the skills training? And I think that's a great way to navigate the resistance. So there is this something more familiar like skills training, manager training, partnered with coaching or embedding coaching into any of those skills training, like Drew does with sales. Sales hasn't always had a coaching element to it, but now he's partnering coaching with sales. And so that we're seeing that more and more. And it's a wonderful introduction for people that have never done coaching before, kind of slide it in the back door, but also bring the awareness to it. So it's great. So how do we scale it? This is the big question. This is why we're here. So everyone is on board. Yes, we want coaching. How do we make it accessible to managers? How are you seeing the logistics of the program set up with your clients or internally with your teams to make this successful?
Well, I want to thank Andrew for leading the way and saying I have coaches. I got a bunch, because I think that part of it too is like, as a coach being like I have 3 coaches at all times. You know, it's kind of my thought on that. And in my experience is being part of a cohort of students that we were all being trained simultaneously. There are only so many teachers to train, and I think when we're scaling and we're training multiple managers simultaneously, creating a culture of peer coaching can be incredibly valuable to give everybody an opportunity to constantly be coaching one another and supporting one another. Now, this can be really difficult and tricky, and there's a lot of nuance to it. But the place that I start when I'm coaching people on how to peer coach is operating agreements. Establishing a clear set of operating agreements of how we talk to each other, how we communicate, what the rules are, and then when we put them into those environments, hold them accountable for following that culture and those operating agreements. And that allows, you know, when I'm working at scale, it allows me to get everybody engaged, everybody talking, supporting one another, and then I'm able to have one-on-one time with people as I can, but know that they're continuing to learn and develop, you know, as a cohort and as a team. So for me, operating agreements is a beautiful place to start.
And I think going off that is you have to build the company culture that normalizes coaching and normalizes talking about performance and professional development. And, I think in some companies it is taboo. And we were a company that was very much old school style company that is now very much a culture of, I think every day we talk about humanity and employees and what kind of company we want to be and where we see ourselves. And so I think we've integrated that culture to include open dialogue, and coaching just falls naturally into that.
I'm considering whether I'll have an ad or not. um, I think when I think about like coaching at scale, I think anything at scale, you get more bang for your buck when you think about peer coaching or peer work. And I think it like relates to me to the comment in the chat about finding resistance around, I don't have time for this. I think that's very reasonable if it feels completely separate from your day-to-day work. But I think when you start to combine like peer coaching and the day-to-day work, you can net out in some really good results. So what I mean by that is like, when you think of your middle managers, the things that they probably need to be coached on is how to manage performance, how to scale a team, how to get to high performance with your team, how to deliver hard feedback. All of those things are better made when you can discuss them in a group setting and when you can bring real problems to that group setting and actually like plot out, I have an issue today with someone. I need like in 2 hours, I need to go talk to this person. Guide me through what I might be able to say, or like, let me practice my conversation on you and you tell me what reads wrong to you. So those are kind of the things that I would think about is like, how do you not let this be a separate thing from their day-to-day and instead make sure that the on the ground work or growth that they're experiencing is directly part of the conversations that they're having in coaching.
And as the culture becomes or coaching becomes part of the culture, you don't have to find the time to coach. It just happens in real time. You all of a sudden discover you're already coaching an employee through something that happens organically. And so then that employee then goes off and spreads the coaching just naturally to their team as well. So I think it is sort of an organic process that scales itself.
I love this conversation. I think one quick thing I'll say too is that when I have coached at scale, I've also been their manager or their supervisor or their trainer. And so making it very clear what the purpose of that conversation is. And if I'm in person, like changing space, like, hey, let's go grab a coffee. Hey, let's go pop into this office, whatever it might be. Virtually, I've even done it with like different backgrounds where like it's not like I put coaching session on my background. I just change my own space and kind of give them a visual cue like, hey, I'm in kind of a different headspace. I hope you are as well. And sort of managing their expectations of what the individual conversation is for helps make that as fruitful as possible. And also understand like what they're here to do, which kind of goes back to that comment about coaching being punitive 10 years ago. Like it is so far from that, but the story is still very much entrenched.
Because this is the core topic of today, I want to open it up to questions. Does anyone want to dig in deeper to something here? Any clarifying questions you want to bring?
I'll jump in. I think there may be a few other folks on this call too who are also HR teams of one. And I think the question becomes, when you're an HR team of one, you typically also don't have budget to bring in coaches. We had executive coaches last year. We cut our executive coaches for cost savings reasons. Because we were going to do the executive coaches and then we were going to roll it down to the leadership and then see how that worked and then roll it down again to the rest of the staff. That all got put on pause. So as an HR team of one, my role now, in addition to being the fun police, but party planner and hiring and firing and doing all the things, is also coaching our leaders and executive team to have those difficult conversations or to handle those hard situations or even to work through development opportunities for staff. How what kind of advice would you give to a situation like that?
I'll jump in. I'm sure there are other great thoughts, but I'll just share. I think it comes back, for me, it comes back to the peer group of your managers and whether they feel like they have safe environments where they can get together and talk about like their functional practice of being a manager and where they're running into challenges. I think in most organizations, there's people with such a range of experience around management, like they've maybe run a company, run huge teams, or they're brand new to it. And you always just learn best from storytelling because most things on a manager level are nuanced and case by case, and it helps to hear like, how did someone else get through it? How did they get past the awkward part? Which parts am I overthinking? All of that. So I think, and that doesn't usually involve a lot of budget. It does involve time and prioritizing the time and prioritizing the space and the culture around like, oh, we have managers that talk to each other about their challenges as managers. So that'd be somewhere where I might start.
I think we are also a company of a people's department of one. So we have a VP of people operations, and she was very much an executive coach to our CEO. And then I feel that the CEO started sharing her successes of coaching employees with other senior level members of the team, and then they started to hear her success stories and they started to invest in it as well and get excited behind it. So it became the executive team started owning the coaching and owning the culture change and owning all of that. So I think it started with a team of one and developed into an executive team that bought into the idea of coaching and then perfecting their coaching and sharing their coaching. So it can grow hopefully organically and quickly for you.
I think Jane's comment about time is so important here. Like when you lack money, time can be the best way to make it up. I feel like when I haven't had the money, finding shared language and other resources to help build kind of a culture around coaching. So like whether it's a book, a podcast, we used Blink as a resource for that, where we would then assign things for people to listen to, and then facilitate those conversations. And so even though like at that point I was one manager for a team, for a big team, I was sort of bringing in different managerial voices through a very low cost solution. So it wasn't just my voice they were hearing all the time. And I could kind of use those different characters to help coach on things, just to diversify it and to make me almost feel like a bigger entity than I was. And yeah, obviously there's a cost associated with some of it, but I found a lot of low cost resources in that avenue to help kind of spread the wealth.
And so I think starting a group like that and bringing them together and saying, this is an identified challenge that, we have heard over and over again. And so we want to start a group of, I like to call it a manager circle. And so we start this circle. And at the beginning, going back to Drew's statement about operating agreements, we can start the first session with, why are we here and what do we want to get out of this? And then we can just have that recurring, even if it's monthly or twice a month for 45 minutes. And so they're saying, this is what I want to get out of this. This is how we're going to work. You could then assign the peer accountability buddies from there, and they could meet once or twice a month with the buddies. And then you have, I love the including podcasts, including books elements. So they really start to, or a leadership assessment that they could all take and then come back and share what makes their style unique. How are they seeing this happen? Maybe they then bring that to their teams to start the shared structure. And then I think it will kind of naturally unfold. And really, Andrew and I were talking about this yesterday, less can be more. So you could really stay on a topic for 2 months. You could look at a book for 2 months instead of trying to get a new topic in every time you meet, because those unique stories and you kind of holding space at scale allows everyone to grow. And I think anytime we're doing things in groups, introducing the law of adaptation, we are all smart cookies and we are all able to take one person's story and adapt it to our own. And in group learning, adult learning, that is your main role as the learner or as the participant, to be able to translate that and apply it to your own situation. How does that land, Crystal? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's about on par. So one of the things I'm changing, we do a leadership exec meeting every week. And one of the things I'm changing is that we are going to start breaking down as a group the staff and discussing where are they today? Do they know what's expected of them? And if they don't, how are we communicating that? And how are we supporting their development? What are their goals? And is there anything that you could get from the support of the rest of this group on this call to help you coach and lead this person? Because it's very much like parenting. It takes a village. And when you're such a small startup and everyone has such a very heavy bag that they're holding already, oftentimes if you have other leaders, so other parents that can lean in and help you do those things, it's really beneficial. And then we can all really own the success of the business and the success of the teams together.
Yes.
So it was really great. Thank you.
You're doing it. You're already doing it. It's in progress. Yes. What other questions come to mind? Anyone else have a situation they would like some support on around bringing this to their teams? My big outstanding question is tracking success. So when we say we want the ROI, how are you all showing the ROI in qualitative or quantitative data?
Big question. Big question. My coaching includes a certain level of self-reporting. So my clients and my groups not only track their sales activity, but then they're expected to tell stories and to tell us what's happening in their day-to-day and how they're handling it, how they're implementing and integrating what we're talking about into their work. So one of the stories I read this morning was that somebody didn't want to make a call and she was like, well, why don't I want to make this call? Because I'm scared. Okay, where's the fear coming from? It's coming from blah, 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 blah. And then, she turned around and made the call and it was, generating awareness. So requiring some self-documentation and then collecting that to present to the stakeholders has been really valuable. The other is pre and post surveys, where surveying people about their perception of themselves before the training, and then giving them the exact same survey at the end of the training, or at the end of whatever the designated time period is, the coaching agreement, what have you, quarterly, whatnot, and seeing how their perceptions of themselves have changed, and that can be incredibly powerful and really good data as a coach to see how my people are growing and learning throughout the process. And then also partnering so if I exist as a coach within an organization, I proactively go out to HR, to sales, to ops, and I ask them how things are going from their perspective. How's retention been? How's sales been? How's our operational margins been? And then I take their findings and I attach them to mine. And I find stories that connect them. Like, hey, this coaching was able to save this employee, which saved the company X number of dollars, coupled with the additional revenue here, coupled with this. And I build the logic for keeping me by not only utilizing my success, but also the success of the company at large.
I love it. That's so helpful. What's bouncing around in my head is a little bit of an imperfect and maybe annoying answer. But my head always goes to like, what impact are we trying to see? Like, what do we actually want to see from people who have been in coaching, and walking back into the measurement from that. So if it's middle managers and the goal is to make our managers really effective, then I would say start there with the measurement. Like, how are you measuring manager effectiveness now, and how is that changing over time? The reason I'm saying it's like a little bit of an annoying answer is coaching is individual behavioral change at the end of the day, and that takes like a lot of time. It's not like you're going to see the change in 2 months, right? They're taking in tools, they're practicing them. Hopefully they get better and better each time, but it's hard to expect that you're going to see significant changes in a short period. So if I'm looking at building my next program and trying to be really realistic, I would probably expect to see a year-long change over time in our manager effectiveness across the board. Those are the two things that sit with me when I think about it.
I would agree with that. And you can also track, we've identified like you see a little bit more confidence in the employee and a very quick turnaround from it. You see a little more pep in their step. You see them more engaged in meetings. You see them more wanting to take responsibility on. So there is short term. I agree that it does. You're not going to see systematic changes or the way that the manager manages their teams and be able to quantify that, but you do see an immediate change, or hopefully see an immediate change in very surface level, like confidence building, all of that. So I think that we're still a company that's trying to navigate how you track it. And we have seen that. I think, again, we're a bit of an artsy company. We're a little more less tracking data and more seeing human retention and positivity about our employees and stuff. So that's how we're tracking it, but we're still sort of navigating that, I think. And that's okay, and normalizing that.
Anything else? I have Christina asked, this is a question from 20 minutes ago. Christina, are you able to come off mute and tell us a little bit more about your question? How does one amplify success when working for bad managers? Do you have a little more context around that? I don't know if you're able to come off mute. Let's see. Ah. Okay, so amplifying success as like when working for a man as an individual contributor to then possibly get promoted into a manager role. What would you encourage individual contributors to do when it comes to coaching if they're not managers at the moment? How does it apply to them? I think, to Jane's point, it's very individualized, but I'll let, if maybe one or two of you want to comment on that. I've worked, oh, Christina shared, I've worked for some lousy managers. Yes. I'd like to amplify them to be better without sounding know-it-all-y. This is a good manage. How do we coach up? Flip the script. You have stumped the panelists. I'm just kidding.
So I spent 10 years in one industry, and then I made a career transition from high-end retail to insurance, and I started as an individual contributor. And I knew I wanted to rise in that industry very quickly. The first thing I did was ask for things that weren't already being done. So after 3 months, I asked for a 3-month review, and they said to me, "No one's ever asked for this before." And I was showing them that I was thinking a little differently. So I was identifying gaps and asking for things. I made a point to get to know what my manager wanted out of their career and their experience. What was important to them? What were their values? It wasn't my responsibility to get them to understand me. It was my responsibility to get to understand them and serve them. And that servant leadership flipped. And instead of, in an ideal world, this jabroni should have been coaching and serving me, but they weren't. And so I took kind of, you do it slyly, in a way. You're not like going in and being like, what do you want out of your career? But I was having a lot of water cooler conversations. And this is something that can be very difficult in a virtual world, but I am a huge proponent of water cooler conversations in terms of culture. And I made a point to really get to know my supervisor and then do things that reflected well for them and how they wanted to succeed. And then I was given the opportunity to put in my own priorities and slowly, and I took on unofficial management leadership responsibility. When a new employee started, I raised my hand. Hey, do you mind if I mentor this person for 30 minutes? Help take a look at this. And then all of a sudden I've got somebody else in the bullpen saying, hey, Drew showed me how to do this and it worked great. It was awesome. Now people are starting to see me as an expert within something small, and then it got big. So there's a lot more nuance to it than that, but that is a literal experience that I had 5 years ago, and that was how I approached it.
I
I
love
think
that.
also sometimes when you're managing up or coaching up, cross-departmental, like it doesn't need to be the same departments. I feel like I have a very close working relationship with one of our executives who is in a completely different department than me, and we often have coaching sessions. They're informal, but he's seeking advice, I'm providing, and we work for each other. So I think it's also looking across departments and looking across the company and finding different perspectives that can influence the executive team or management team. And then also just making sure, this is slightly off topic, but making sure it helps identify and to align the manager with the employee. Not every team is going to function and work. And so, maybe making internal shifts or finding different coaching relationships will help, will establish as well. So that was what I was kicking in my brain.
Yeah, I'll just like add a little tiny layer on top of both of those. I think understanding your manager's values is really valuable. And then I think the next part of the conversation is, where is your shared alignment? Like we both want me to be successful, and in order to be really effective, I'd love to know, like, what does success look like to you in 30 days or 60 days? So just starting from, what is your shared perspective? What's the goal that you both share? And then backing out from there to figure out how to kind of like adjust their style. Or if you're like, I have an idea for a great thing, why do you care about that great thing and maybe your manager doesn't yet? And how do you bring up the great thing in a way that will get them to care? Like, let's say you want to redesign onboarding. We both want our newest hires to be really effective, faster than a year from now, right? So I think we could do A, B, C, D in order to get there. That kind of thing might be helpful.
Just looking at our time, I want to thank our panelists for being here. Drew, Andrew, Jane, it's so lovely to spend this time with you. I could spend all day, every day, just nerding out about this topic. I would love to hear from those of you that are here, that stayed to the end. If you want to drop one big takeaway in the chat, what was the one big idea that you took from today that seems meaningful and is going to stay with you? And before we go, I do just want to share, we have, if you want to learn more about coaching or kind of learn the foundations of coaching, if you or anyone on your teams, the operating agreements, yes, lean on peers to coach as well. Great. Showing value of coaching. Amazing. We do have a workshop in May, and it's about the foundations of coaching and using coaching as a retention tool. So it's a 2-hour deep dive into defining coaching and getting you started as a coach and a peer coach. So if you know anyone that would be interested, I will send more information with the wrap-up email, but that is happening in a couple of weeks, and we'd love to have you there. Thank you so much. Drew, Jane, Andrew, quickly, where could we find you to stay in touch with you and keep following along on your journeys?
LinkedIn, Drew Allison, Cape and Cowell Consulting, also Life is Sales, program director and co-creator of Life is Sales. That's pretty easy to find, lifeissales.com. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Same here. Find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to say hi. I do my best to kind of keep track of that inbox and help where I can asynchronously if you have quick questions or want to bounce something off of me.
For sure, I have LinkedIn, but also we have shows all over the country. So feel free to always poke us and say hi, and happy to chat.
Yes, Crossroads Live, seeing all their musicals and theater performances. That's great. Thank you all for being here. We will talk soon. Really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful rest of your week.